Most people who want to lead never become leaders. They have the ambition, they have the vision, they have the intelligence, they have the desire, they have everything except the one thing that matters. They have everything except the ability to survive the preparation. They have everything except the capacity to endure the obscurity. They have everything except the strength to persist through the years when no one knows their name. They have everything except what it takes to survive before rising. They fail before they rise. They quit before they lead. They surrender before they arrive. They fail in obscurity. They give up in preparation. They quit during the invisible years, the years before anyone cares, the years before anyone notices, the years before anyone pays attention. They fail before they rise. I know because I watched them fail, watched men with more talent fail, watched men with more education fail, watched men with more connections fail, watched men with more advantages fail, watched them fail not at the top, not during leadership, not while leading, but before anyone knew their names, before anyone noticed them, before anyone cared. They failed in the preparation, in the obscurity, in the invisible years. They failed before they rose, before they had chance to lead, before they reached position where leadership mattered. They failed before they rose. Let me tell you why. Why most people who want to lead never become leaders. Why most aspiring leaders fail before they rise. Why the preparation defeats more people than the leadership. Why the obscurity destroys more ambition than the spotlight. Why the invisible years eliminate more potential leaders than the visible years. Why most leaders fail before they rise. Let me tell you why. Because I survived, because I endured, because I persisted through years when no one knew my name, because I lasted through preparation, because I survived obscurity, because I made it through invisible years, because I rose. Let me tell you why most do not, why most leaders fail before they rise. Most people cannot endure being nobody. This is the first reason, the fundamental reason, the reason that eliminates most aspiring leaders. They cannot endure being nobody, cannot tolerate obscurity, cannot accept being unknown, cannot survive being invisible, cannot persist when no one knows their name, cannot continue when no one cares about their work, cannot maintain effort when no one notices their existence, cannot endure being nobody. And if you cannot endure being nobody, you cannot become somebody. If you cannot survive obscurity, you cannot reach visibility. If you cannot tolerate being unknown, you cannot become known. If you cannot persist when invisible, you cannot rise to prominence. You must endure being nobody before you can become somebody, must survive obscurity before reaching visibility, must tolerate being unknown before becoming known, must persist when invisible before rising to prominence. This is required, this is unavoidable, this is the path. You must endure being nobody, and most people cannot. They fail before they rise. I was nobody for years. Bobbin boy in factory basement. Nobody knew me. Nobody cared about me. Nobody noticed me. I was nobody. Invisible, unknown, obscure. One of hundreds of factory boys, indistinguishable, replaceable, forgettable, nobody. Telegraph messenger running through streets. Nobody knew my name. Nobody cared about my ambitions. Nobody noticed my existence. I was nobody, just another messenger, just another boy, just another anonymous face. Nobody. Telegraph operator sending messages. Nobody cared about my dreams. Nobody knew my plans. Nobody noticed my preparation. I was nobody, just an operator, just an employee, just another person working. Nobody for years, many years. I was nobody. But I endured being nobody, accepted being obscure, tolerated being invisible, persisted when unknown, continued when no one noticed, worked when no one cared, built when no one watched, prepared when no one paid attention. I endured being nobody, not because I enjoyed it, not because it felt good, not because I did not want recognition, but because I understood that being nobody is required, is necessary, is the path, is how you become somebody. You must endure being nobody, must survive the obscurity, must persist through invisibility, must continue when unknown, must work when unnoticed, must build when unwatched, must prepare when unrecognized. You must endure being nobody. I did for years, and eventually I became somebody, not by avoiding being nobody, but by enduring being nobody long enough to become somebody. Most people cannot endure this, cannot accept being obscure for years, cannot tolerate being invisible while preparing, cannot persist when no one knows their name, cannot continue when no one cares. They need recognition, need attention, need acknowledgement, need validation, need to be noticed, need to be known, need to be recognized. They need to be somebody now. They cannot wait, cannot endure, cannot persist, cannot survive being nobody. So they quit, they give up, they stop preparing, they abandon ambition, they fail before they rise, before they become leaders, before they get chance to lead. They fail in obscurity, fail when nobody, fail before rising. Most people fail before they rise because they cannot endure being nobody. Most people cannot persist without validation. This is the second reason, related to the first but distinct. They cannot persist without external validation, cannot continue without recognition, cannot work without acknowledgement, cannot build without appreciation, cannot prepare without praise. They need validation, need someone to notice, need someone to acknowledge, need someone to recognize, need someone to praise, need someone to validate their effort, their work, their preparation, their progress. They need external validation. And when it does not come, when no one notices, when no one acknowledges, when no one recognizes, when no one praises, when no one validates, they quit, they stop, they give up, they fail before rising, before leading, before becoming leaders. They fail because they cannot persist without validation. I worked for years without validation. Nobody praised my preparation. Nobody acknowledged my learning. Nobody recognized my progress. Nobody validated my effort. I learned Morse code. Nobody cared. I studied business. Nobody noticed. I saved money. Nobody acknowledged. I prepared for opportunities. Nobody praised. I worked without validation, without recognition, without acknowledgement, without praise, without anyone noticing, without anyone caring. I worked anyway, persisted anyway, continued anyway, built anyway, prepared anyway, without validation for years, many years. I did not need validation, did not require recognition, did not demand acknowledgement, did not seek praise. I worked because I decided to work. I persisted because I decided to persist. I prepared because I decided to prepare, not because anyone validated, not because anyone noticed, not because anyone cared. I decided and I persisted without validation for years. This made me different, made me capable of surviving preparation, made me able to endure obscurity, made me strong enough to persist when invisible. I did not need external validation. I validated myself. I recognized my own progress. I acknowledged my own work. I praised my own effort. I validated myself. This self-validation allowed persistence, allowed continuation, allowed survival through years when no one else validated, when no one else noticed, when no one else cared. Self-validation sustained me, kept me working, kept me building, kept me preparing through years of obscurity, through years of being nobody, through years of invisibility. Self-validation sustained me, allowed me to persist without external validation, allowed me to survive preparation, allowed me to rise eventually. Most people cannot do this, cannot validate themselves, cannot recognize their own progress, cannot acknowledge their own work, cannot praise their own effort. They need external validation, need others to notice, need recognition from outside, need validation from environment. And when environment does not provide validation, when others do not notice, when recognition does not come, when praise is absent, they quit, they stop persisting, they abandon preparation, they give up on rising, they fail. Before rising, before leading, before becoming leaders, they fail because they cannot persist without validation, because they need external validation that does not come during preparation, during obscurity, during invisible years. External validation comes after rising, not during preparation, and those who need it during preparation fail before rising. Most people cannot work without seeing progress. This is the third reason. They cannot work when progress is invisible, cannot persist when advancement is imperceptible, cannot continue when growth seems absent, cannot maintain effort when results are not visible. They need to see progress, need to measure advancement, need to observe growth, need to witness results, need visible progress to continue working. And during preparation, during obscurity, during invisible years, progress is invisible, is imperceptible, is not measurable in ways that feel satisfying. Progress is happening but cannot be seen, cannot be measured, cannot be observed, cannot be witnessed. Progress is invisible, and those who need to see progress to continue working quit when progress is invisible, quit during preparation, quit in obscurity, quit before rising. They fail before they rise because they cannot work without seeing progress. I worked for years without seeing visible progress, learned Morse code, progress was invisible, studied business, progress was imperceptible, saved money, progress was slow, built knowledge, progress was unmeasurable, prepared capabilities, progress was unobservable. I worked without seeing progress, without measuring advancement, without observing growth, without witnessing visible results. I worked anyway, trusted that invisible progress was real, trusted that imperceptible advancement was happening, trusted that slow growth mattered, trusted that unmeasurable preparation was valuable, trusted that unobservable capability building was real. I trusted invisible progress. I believed in unseen advancement. I had faith in imperceptible growth. I trusted, and I continued working without seeing progress for years, many years, trusting that invisible progress was real, that preparation mattered even when imperceptible, that capability building counted even when unmeasurable. I trusted, and I worked. Without seeing progress, this trust allowed persistence, allowed continuation through years when progress was invisible, when advancement was imperceptible, when growth was unmeasurable, when results were unobservable. Trust and invisible progress sustained me, kept me working when I could not see results, kept me building when advancement was imperceptible, kept me preparing when growth was unmeasurable. Trust sustained me through preparation, through obscurity, through invisible years. Trust in invisible progress. Trust that work mattered even when results were not visible. Trust that preparation counted even when advancement was imperceptible. Trust that capability building was real even when growth was unmeasurable. This trust allowed persistence, allowed survival through preparation, allowed rising eventually. Most people cannot trust invisible progress, cannot believe in imperceptible advancement, cannot have faith in unmeasurable growth, cannot trust that preparation matters when results are not visible. They need to see progress, need visible results, need measurable advancement, need observable growth. And when they cannot see progress, when results are not visible, when advancement is imperceptible, when growth is unmeasurable, they conclude progress is not happening. conclude work is not working, conclude preparation is not preparing, conclude effort is wasted, and they quit, stop working, abandon preparation, give up on rising. They fail before rising, before leading, before becoming leaders. They fail because they cannot work without seeing progress, because they cannot trust invisible progress during preparation, during obscurity, during invisible years, when progress is real but invisible. Most people underestimate how long preparation takes. This is the fourth reason. They underestimate duration, underestimate time required, underestimate length of preparation, underestimate years of obscurity, underestimate time being nobody. They think preparation takes months. It takes years. They think obscurity lasts weeks. It lasts years. They think being nobody is temporary phase. It is extended period. They underestimate. They expect to rise quickly, expect to lead soon, expect recognition rapidly, expect visibility promptly. They underestimate how long preparation takes, how long obscurity lasts, how long being nobody continues. They underestimate. And when preparation takes longer than expected, when obscurity extends beyond anticipated, when being nobody continues past imagined, they quit. They conclude it will never happen, conclude they will never rise, conclude they will never lead, conclude they will always be nobody. They quit because preparation took longer than they expected, longer than they prepared for, longer than they could endure. They fail before rising because they underestimated how long preparation takes. I prepared for 13 years before anyone noticed me. 13 years. From factory boy at 13 to superintendent at 26. 13 years of preparation, 13 years of obscurity, 13 years of being nobody, 13 years of invisible work, 13 years of unnoticed effort, 13 years of unrecognized building, 13 years, not weeks, not months, years, many years, long years. I knew preparation would take years, expected obscurity to last years, understood being nobody required years. I knew, I expected, I understood. I prepared myself mentally, prepared myself emotionally, prepared myself for long preparation, for extended obscurity, for many years of being nobody. I prepared for the preparation, for the obscurity, for the years of invisibility. I knew how long it would take, and I endured for 13 years until I rose, until I became superintendent, until someone finally noticed. 13 years of preparation I endured because I expected it, because I knew it would take years, because I prepared for long preparation. Most people underestimate, expect to rise in months, expect recognition in a year, expect leadership quickly, expect visibility rapidly. They underestimate. They are not prepared mentally, not prepared emotionally, not prepared for years of preparation, years of obscurity, years of being nobody. They are not prepared. And when reality exceeds expectations, when preparation extends beyond imagined, when obscurity lasts longer than anticipated, when being nobody continues past expected, they quit. They cannot endure longer than they expected, cannot persist past their mental preparation, cannot continue beyond their emotional readiness. They quit because preparation took longer than they underestimated. They fail before rising because they underestimated how long preparation takes. Most people cannot handle the uncertainty. This is the fifth reason. They cannot handle not knowing, cannot tolerate uncertainty, cannot endure ambiguity, cannot persist without guarantee, cannot continue without assurance, cannot work without certainty. They need to know preparation will work, need to know obscurity will end, need to know they will rise, need to know they will lead, need to know success is coming, need certainty, need guarantee, need assurance. They need to know. And during preparation, there is no knowing, no certainty, no guarantee, no assurance, only uncertainty, only ambiguity, only not knowing. You might rise, you might not. You might succeed, you might fail, you might become leader, you might remain nobody forever. No certainty, only uncertainty. And those who cannot handle uncertainty quit. Quit during preparation, quit in obscurity, quit before rising. They fail before they rise because they cannot handle the uncertainty. I worked for years without knowing whether I would rise. Without certainty, I would succeed. Without guarantee, I would lead. Without assurance, I would become somebody I did not know. I could not know. No one can know during preparation, during obscurity, during invisible years. No guarantee exists. No certainty is possible. No assurance is available. You work, you prepare, you build, and you do not know whether it will work, whether you will rise, whether you will succeed, whether you will lead. You do not know. I did not know. I worked anyway, persisted anyway, continued anyway, without knowing, without certainty, without guarantee, without assurance. I accepted uncertainty, accepted not knowing, accepted ambiguity, accepted that preparation might not lead to rising, that obscurity might be permanent, that I might remain nobody forever. I accepted and I worked anyway, despite uncertainty, despite not knowing, despite ambiguity, despite no guarantee. I worked for years without knowing whether it would work, whether I would rise, whether I would lead. I worked despite uncertainty. This acceptance of uncertainty allowed persistence, allowed continuation through years of not knowing, years of uncertainty, years of ambiguity, years of no guarantee. Acceptance allowed persistence, allowed me to work without knowing outcome, allowed me to build without certainty of success, allowed me to prepare without assurance of rising. Acceptance of uncertainty sustained me, kept me working when I did not know if it would work, kept me preparing when I had no guarantee of success, kept me building when I had no assurance of rising. Acceptance sustained me through preparation, through obscurity, through years of uncertainty, acceptance of uncertainty, acceptance that I might never rise, acceptance that preparation might fail, acceptance that I might remain nobody forever. This acceptance paradoxically allowed persistence, allowed survival, allowed eventual rising. Most people cannot accept uncertainty, cannot tolerate not knowing, cannot endure ambiguity, cannot persist without guarantee. They need certainty before committing, need guarantee before persisting, need assurance before continuing, and certainty does not exist during preparation. Guarantee is not available during obscurity. Assurance is not possible during invisible years, so they do not commit fully, do not persist completely, do not continue indefinitely. They hedge, they hold back, they keep options open, they do not fully commit because they lack certainty, and half commitment fails, hedging fails, holding back fails, keeping options open fails. Full commitment is required, total persistence is necessary, complete continuation is essential, but full commitment requires accepting uncertainty, and most people cannot accept uncertainty, cannot commit without guarantee, cannot persist without assurance, cannot continue without certainty. They fail before rising, before leading, before becoming leaders. They fail because they cannot handle uncertainty during preparation. Most people quit just before the breakthrough. This is the sixth reason, the most tragic reason. They quit too soon. They endure preparation for years, survive obscurity for long periods, persist through being nobody for extended time. They do everything right. They work hard. They persist long. They endure much. They are close, very close, almost there, almost ready, almost prepared, almost visible, almost rising, almost, but they quit just before breakthrough, just before recognition, just before visibility, just before rising, just before leading. They quit too soon. One more month and they would have succeeded. One more year and they would have risen. One more period and they would have broken through. But they quit 1 month too soon, 1 year too early, one period before breakthrough. They quit just before breakthrough. This is the most tragic failure. The failure that comes closest to success. The failure that endures almost everything but quits just before winning. The failure just before breakthrough. I almost quit many times, almost gave up, almost surrendered, almost stopped preparing, almost abandoned ambition, almost during darkest periods, during longest obscurity, during deepest doubt. I almost quit. What kept me going, I do not fully know. Perhaps stubbornness, perhaps desperation, perhaps refusal to return to poverty, perhaps fear of being nobody forever, perhaps hope that breakthrough was coming, perhaps inability to imagine stopping after enduring so much. I do not fully know, but I did not quit. I continued one more day, one more week, one more month, one more year. I continued just a little longer, just a bit more, just one more period. I continued, and breakthrough came, not immediately, not quickly, but eventually. Recognition arrived, visibility appeared, rising happened, leading began, breakthrough came. Because I did not quit, because I continued just a little longer, because I persisted one more period, breakthrough came. Because I did not quit just before breakthrough. Most people quit just before breakthrough. They endure preparation, survive obscurity, persist being nobody for years. They do everything right, almost everything. They work hard, they persist long. They endure much, but they quit too soon. One period before breakthrough, one phase before recognition, one moment before visibility, one step before rising. They quit just before breakthrough, just before success, just before everything they worked for. They quit too soon, and they never know they were close, never know breakthrough was coming, never know one more period would have succeeded. They quit too soon. This is the most tragic failure. The failure of those who do almost everything right, who endure almost enough, who persist almost long enough, but quit just before breakthrough. They fail before they rise because they quit too soon. These are the reasons most leaders fail before they rise. They cannot endure being nobody, cannot persist without validation, cannot work without seeing progress, underestimate how long preparation takes, cannot handle uncertainty, quit just before breakthrough. These reasons eliminate most aspiring leaders, eliminate them during preparation, during obscurity, during invisible years, before they rise, before they lead, before they become leaders. These reasons cause failure before rising. I survived these reasons, endured being nobody for years, persisted without validation from others, worked without seeing visible progress, understood preparation would take many years, accepted uncertainty of outcome, did not quit even when tempted. I survived not because I was special, not because I was superior, not because I had advantages, but because I understood that preparation requires enduring being nobody, that persistence requires self-validation, that work requires trusting invisible progress, that preparation takes many years, that uncertainty must be accepted, that quitting must be refused. I understood and I endured for 13 years through preparation, through obscurity, through being nobody, through invisible years. I endured and I rose. Eventually, not quickly, not easily, but eventually, I rose because I survived preparation, because I endured obscurity, because I persisted being nobody, because I did not fail before rising. You can survive too if you understand, if you accept, if you endure. You can survive being nobody, can persist without validation, can work without seeing progress, can understand preparation takes years, can accept uncertainty, can refuse to quit. You can survive, not easily, not comfortably, not quickly, but you can survive if you understand what is required, if you accept what is necessary, if you endure what is demanded. You can survive preparation, can endure obscurity, can persist being nobody, can survive the invisible years, can rise eventually, can become leader ultimately, can succeed finally if you survive, if you endure, if you do not fail before you rise. Most leaders fail before they rise because they cannot endure being nobody, cannot persist without validation, cannot work without seeing progress, underestimate how long preparation takes, cannot handle uncertainty, quit just before breakthrough. Most fail before they rise, but you do not have to fail. You can survive, you can endure, you can persist, you can rise if you understand, if you accept, if you do not quit. The path is hard, the preparation is long, the obscurity is deep, the uncertainty is real. The temptation to quit is constant, but survival is possible. Rising is achievable. Leading is attainable if you survive preparation, if you endure obscurity, if you persist being nobody, if you do not fail before you rise. This is possible. This is achievable. This is the path. Survive preparation, endure obscurity. Do not fail before you rise, then lead, then become the leader you want to become. This is possible if you survive, if you endure, if you do not fail before you rise.